Hey everybody, it's Keely Just here with the Philosophy Society. It is September 4th, 2024. It's a Wednesday. We are in the Toronto Metropolitan University Library, room 860. Got a book for next month, so that's proactive of me. Very good. We're just talking about some administrative things and some business stuff for the Philosophy Society about memberships and whatnot, and receiving recognition for your efforts within the Philosophy Society. And so even if a student, like let's say somebody took a class at the university, we would give them recognition of that class. As long as you pass, I guess. You don't have to really show your grades. Mm-hmm. But you can if you want to. I don't think it really does that as an option. But just as an example, because I think that the Philosophy Society is something that is complementary to taking philosophy courses in university. I'm not trying to replace that. I think that would be crazy, right? So that's one thing that's getting worked on. And then the newsletter, that's getting worked on. And publishing the newsletter in hard copy, which I think would be super cool. With like images from that last year that were like some of the best photos taken all year. And you would get a 400-page color book. It's like a huge, thick magazine. And it would have some cool picture on every page. And then all the stuff that's been written for that that year, really. And then if people wanted to submit stuff, there is some criteria for submissions, but other people could publish in the newsletter too. Mm-hmm. I would just be like the editor. So that's something to think about. And so I had some options today. I was thinking we could just do an improv day where I just go on the board and just talk about stuff. If you guys want to go through the book, we can go through the book too. So what do you think?
Improv?
So sometimes I just talk. Remember when I just draw diagrams?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of make sense of things. We can philosophize like that, unstructured, or we can go through. We can finish off. We could probably even do both because it's not that much content to just have one solid video for.
Okay. So we're playing diagrams.
You want to do the diagram stuff? Okay. We got erasers and markers. I actually like the diagram stuff the best. I think it's less boring than me being structured to the thing. I don't know what to say. What should we talk about? It's been a while since I've done the free-flowing kind of discussion stuff. And I guess we can do like a history of the Philosophy Society kind of thing. Like where have we been? And this is like the TMU version of it. Before I did the newsletters, so right now we have the videos. And then before that was the online newsletters. And in those newsletters, that was 2022 to 2023.
Oh, okay. What was in those letters?
You can read them. They're online. And so one of the first books you can buy would be the publication of all those newsletters.
Oh,
okay. It's about 400 pages worth of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so that's all the stuff I wrote from there.
Okay.
And then I'll start writing the newsletters again. And then that would be the subscription thing. So you'll get the event notice, but then I'll go into detail into certain topics that you can explore. And then you get a group assignment specific to whether you're in that 7 Habits book. And everybody who's completed that course or that's in that course can chat with each other and talk about stuff. So it's course specific. Anyways, that's just like website stuff. So the subjects, they kind of like progress through, and it was relative to the people that are here a lot of the time. So when I'm talking about stuff, there's kind of 2 ways to teach. Like if you talk about like class structure, right? One of them is you have like an outline, and it's like independent of who you're really talking to, right? You just go through the outline. You can do it with nobody, really. You can get through it, and then people could come in as they go, independent of attendance. And then the second way is to structure what you're talking about to the people in the room, right? So it's like person-centered or like student-centered.
Which one did you use?
Both. So right now we're doing the second one.
Okay.
I'm just talking to you guys as if it's like new, and I'm like, this is where we were, and this is where we are. And then where we're going, we'll have to get to where we are first. And so the student-centered one is very relative to the people in the group. So for example, when I first did the Philosophy Society, we would talk about like a lot of Christian stuff, because one of the guys was like a pastor at a certain point for a period of time. And he also suffered from schizophrenia and was a homosexual older man. And so he just had a lot to talk about, right? Which was fun. I was like, let's talk about it. And sometimes it would get challenging. This is where my thesis of the philosophy of mental health came in, because he would be very frustrated and upset that like people didn't agree with him. He would say things where you're like, well, is that really the case? Like, is it true that, like number three, like if 333 came up for some reason, that had some significance to today or other things like numerology or astrology, or specifically he used to talk about this guy named Edgar Casey, who was this like weird offshoot prophet. And,
What is the
Christian mythology.
What was the term? Caesar.
Caesar?
You talk. You said that he's it's a psychological term.
Caesar, you mean epilepsy?
So I'm just doing a couple things on the thing here.
No.
Okay, good.
Caesarite.
Caesarite.
What's the term that you used to describe the guy? You said he's
Schizophrenic? Schizophrenic?
schizophrenic and Caesarite.
He was a minister. He was gay and he was old. The guy that was
Right, but the associated to maybe some kind of a symptom of psychology. Schizoid.
schizoid.
Huh?
Schizoid?
Schizoid.
I don't think he had schizoid personality disorder because he was very social and he fit within certain
No,
norms.
that's not. Let's forget about it. No. I'm just wondering what do you mean by that? Because you use the word.
Schizophrenic. Well, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, so he would like have delusional beliefs and hear voices.
Oh, delusional.
Yeah, and think that like extreme paranoia and stuff like that. So
No, yes.
he was one of the people that suffered from a mental health issue, and that's where that was like a real crystallization for stuff that I think about. And then just because I observed progress with this person, they got better at explaining themselves, being empathetic, understanding other people, because they would express an idea and then we would talk about it, right? We would philosophize it like as a practice. And so that's what it used to be when I first started in 2010, 12, right? So like 10 years ago. And then
In this case, you need a psychiatrist or some kind of.
sure.
This is serious, I think. Yes.
Yeah, he had those people, but then he would on the weekends come and he was functional. He wasn't dysfunctional, but he did have some stuff going on.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it was interesting to see how being philosophical in a group setting helped him with other skills that reduced some of the negative secondary symptoms like outbursts and being pissed off at people and stuff like that, right? So there was other things. Anyways, that's just something that occurred. And so that motivated me to continue to try to grow the community, right? To see what are the limits of this social context and how it can help people. And part of the reason that I thought that it was making an effect was because of the way it's structured in a certain way, because of the criteria for acceptance. You don't like if you say something, it's not just accepted as true or even meaningful. You got to have to kind of show that. Right. And then and so on the YouTube videos, those started with the thesis on the philosophy of mental health. So if you look at the first one that was posted, it was like a 40-page paper I wrote for this capstone course for an ethics certificate, right? And I talk about the definition of mental illness, and then a debate between Albert Ellis and Thomas Sayers, and then I go through therapeutic communities. And then I give an ethical justification for why we should treat society like a therapeutic community, basically, right? And so that was the first YouTube video because I needed to submit it for an assignment. And I was like, I'm just going to record everyone from now on. And then I started doing that. And then I got a guy to edit it. And so I basically went through all of my perspectives on every major idea and how it all fits together, over the last year and a half or so, right? And then before we edited the YouTube videos, we did the Feeling Good book. Right. So I went through that whole book with the group. And then we started this book recently, 6 months ago or something. And so, and so we also take little breaks and do the movies. And so the unstructured way was done all mostly on the YouTube videos before that. But then when I started doing this one, it's more structured because I have like an outline and slides, right? And so the unstructured way, basically, this is like a history, so it's not really much to talk about. But you can connect a bunch of ideas together and make it relative to where the people are at with their own belief systems, instead of getting them to assimilate to some structured view that you may have, right? It's a different educational style, because you're learning to use the ideas, then just rely on rote memory. That can make sense and it can be together, but it's not necessarily specific to the way that you see the world.
Okay.
And so we're more likely to remember stuff if we can associate it to ourselves in some way, like how I can, like, in my own narrative, make sense of this idea, you know? So the unstructured approach is a way to try to facilitate that.
Well, why do you call it unstructured? What do you mean by unstructured?
Because there's no slides, and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. It kind of unravels as I go, in like an improv thought experiment,
Oh,
or like open discussion that still has some standards and boundaries, and some things are more or less value, but just that in itself, it's very minimalist actually, because we can, and then it can evaluate these systems to discuss stuff. So yeah.
so you actually, like, what you do now is pretty much improv. It's like that kind of style, right?
That's what I was doing for a year, but then I started doing the structure stuff with this book,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because we're just going through the book meticulously. And
More structured.
professors don't really read through it like I'm doing. I'm going really like one sentence at a time,
Yeah.
which can get kind of boring, I think, sometimes, and monotonous. But I kind of think of it from like a podcast perspective. That you can just like listen to it.
Yeah. Because I review the videos.
Yeah.
They're helpful. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Are they good? I actually never watch them
Oh, it's good.
because I just do it and then I like get ready for the next one.
But,
What are your thoughts?
because the second time when I review it, I actually, I have more time to absorbing what's there, what's in the conversation. Like the movie, I was watching when I came here, the second part. So yeah, it's very good. I would say it deepened the understanding. It actually is a, because sometimes at the scene you don't have time, to understand everything or like just something just very fast. Just but with the videos you could actually
Digestion.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
But
so
the thing is
for the
that-
wisdom, for the wisdom part, for getting the wisdom part.
Okay, that's like, we're gonna put that like over here.
The question is, for how long could you retain the main ideas? Because usually our memory is limited, and memory is not eternal. How helpful could be one of the class, for example, in real life?
Well, that's why the unstructured ones are better, because I'm making it relative to you. And so, like, for example, one person, she was talking about, she like, when someone brings something up, that is like a subjective thing in their world that's very important, but it may not have the same importance to us, right? So the way they say it is demonstrating how they understand that idea or whatever it is, right? So she was talking about like exercising and dieting and then sometimes binging.
But one idea is abstract. How can I apply this idea in real life?
Oh yeah, well, it depends on the ideas. So for her,
Depends on the idea.
the exercising and the dieting stuff, we talked about the sense of self, right? And reward and like delayed gratification, for example. Hello,
Hello.
back from Europe, I see.
I'm sorry, I'm late.
With a Thrasher shirt on. What happened to you? We're doing an unstructured talk today, at least for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm just going.
And so
Dieting.
it depends on that's why the unstructured one's better, because then they can be specific to that person and then discuss what's going on with them, right? Whereas the outline stuff or the slides is more about like a curriculum, and then you have to like bring yourself to that instead of the class going to wherever your understanding is. You have to bring yourself to the understanding of the material, which is good, right? But there's other ways to do it too, I think. You know, it's just that you might not know where you're going to end up with it, right? So me talking about that stuff, I didn't know I was going to talk about that, but then the person's self-report later, she was like, that was the best class you've ever done. And for other people, I was like, yeah, it was mediocre.
It's
But,
subject.
but because it was specific to where she was at,
Mhm.
it was very meaningful for her.
Mhm.
Right. And so the theory would be some theory that's relevant to that talk with her. Right. But it might not be relative to other people. So,
I'll give you another example, because we just watched the movie. So I actually apply that very, quite well. It's experiences, in my gym exercise. So when I do the weightlifting, I remembered two things. One is, that in the movie they said, who we are, this moment. Like in the ring, this is exactly, oh, this is this moment. There's not nothing. There's just this moment. So it's this, and then it's not about it's not about the how well you do. It's about the process. So I just do it. I just never don't worry about whether what was the consequences.
Okay.
So and then just do the thing. Do the thing that you like, because in the movie he said about you should do the thing that you're passionate about, and don't worry about the consequences. So actually, this is very good, because I experienced it, and then it's very good. And I also think this probably solve one of the issue that raised by Schopenhauer, because Schopenhauer said life is either pain or boring, right? Why is it boring? It's because after you obtain, it's boring. But for this movie, he talked about all it matters is the process. It doesn't matter what you get it or not. It doesn't matter if you get an Olympic gold or whatever. You just first of all, if this is things you like, just do it.
You said,
Don't worry about it.
don't worry about consequence. But he
Yeah.
said
Mhm.
every action has a price.
Yeah.
It's a little bit contradictory.
that's true. You could say that. Yeah.
It's real life. Every action has a price. It's one of the messages.
I think he's saying that you have to be prepared to be responsible for what that cost is, but you may not know what it is as you're doing it or before you do it.
But life is unknown. It's unpredictable.
Okay.
Sometimes you should know. You should be ready.
Yeah.
You can do them.
Because the let go of concept really helps me, because it's I start to kind of like whatever the consequence, but I'm here because this thing brought me to the gym, and then everything I experience is part of my life. I start to notice a lot more things, and this is like, for example, why I'm here. This moment is also part of my life, and then the way I talk, I want to talk about this. This is life, nothing else. There's no beginning, there's no ending. So that's what I thought. Just an example of how the what I learned can apply to the real life.
Okay, that's cool. That's great.
Mhm.
So I'm just giving like a history of where the Philosophy Society has been in general. So in the past, why it developed in the way that it did, and then where we're kind of at now. And so there's a bunch of discussions. So the newsletters, they basically were just a summary of the meeting. So if you missed the meeting, you just read the newsletter, right? But now we got the video, and it's a little bit better. It costs a little bit of money to get the guy to edit it, but if it's of good quality, then if there's downtime, he just cuts out that downtime and it condenses the video, so it's better.
Yeah, because it also have a sound.
Yeah.
Because I prefer listening rather than reading again. Some characters, on the
Sure.
newspaper, but the sound, you talking about it,
Mhm.
it's more accepted. So just better experiences.
I think there's a place for the video and the newsletter, because in the newsletter, I'm going to write stuff that I don't talk about here.
Oh,
Anyway, so there's the option to read those, and then you can catch up with where the thought progression kind of went. And then when I first started here, somebody asked me, they're like, you were talking about what I've been doing. She's like, well, do you have like a curriculum or something like that? I was like, actually, I do. I was like, and the first book is ding, Feeling Good. And then I was like, if you guys buy the book, I gave a couple copies away for free. Sometimes I give some away, sometimes we want them. And then everyone got the book, and then we started going through it, and that took about a year or so. And then we finished that, and then I did the improv. Then we started doing the videos right after that. And so there's a whole bunch of discussion in there. And then and you can just read the titles to see what I talked about in them.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, we were getting to the unit of self. That's where that eventually led, which is, or the theory of self in relation to, so like right here, in relation to like theory of mind, right? And the way that I'm trying to build a theory is so that it's useful to help with like mental health stuff and making decisions and understanding our subjective states and whatnot. And so, yeah, and so that's where we kind of left off with that. And then we started doing the other books. So,
Because also people are addicted to videos, especially new generations. And it's internet, it's videos. And physically, it's not usual, it's something, it's not comfortable for some people. So it depends on the audience. I prefer this kind of relationships between professors and my colleagues. But other people prefer to, I don't like the social contact. After coronavirus was worst.
yeah. People get more socially
But
anxious.
I think you mean short videos, and these are not short videos. So,
TikTok.
yeah.
Hmm?
So
It's true.
It's a combination. Mhm.
I watched it on the subway. So I
Hmm.
downloaded and I watched it on the subway. The video.
That's cool. So yeah, so this is where we've been. And so the wisdom is like, you can talk about like philosophical content.
And videos, what about freedom? Do you think about what is happening now, Telegram and even TikTok, a Chinese company here in North America? So do you think these videos is forever a good platform, a good way to express your ideas without control? Or somehow you have some kind of inquisition or in control? Do you feel totally free to express?
Well, we talked about this
Yeah,
before
yes.
with that censorship discussion, right? David brought up the fact that,
Yeah.
he's like,
No,
what
but I
about
mean in
this?
videos, because videos, which kind of platform do you think is forever in the?
Well, it's not like if a huge EMP, like I don't, these servers, like the data is kind of saved on them, right? So if something happened to those, either through a natural disaster, human-made disaster, or like geological or extraterrestrial.
Artificial intelligence is usually keywords, coronavirus, climate change, whatever is in something wrong. Watch out! Your videos could be also blocked by
By some
artificial
countries.
intelligence.
Yeah, maybe. I'm
no,
not sure.
it's general. It's a YouTube.
Okay.
No, this is kind of
Well, when you say
barriers.
freedom, what do you mean? Freedom like of
Freedom?
speech? Or
Yes, sure.
well, there's a certain degree of free speech. Like when I discuss climate change, and I was kind of discussing like how to approach climate change as someone who's just trying to be reasonable, basically, but also skeptical at the same time. If you look at that video on YouTube, there's a little disclaimer that talks about misinformation for climate change, just because the title says climate change,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't taken down or anything, but like there's a limit to what you can say on these platforms, and some of them have different moderating methods that are, like they're not all the same. And so on YouTube, that was one of the moderating methods, just to try to counterbalance the potential for misinformation about a very sensitive issue. And coronavirus would be the same thing,
Is a misinformation is allowed per the principle of free speech?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I checked the criminal code of Canada.
Okay.
They said the speech that is prevented, that is prohibited. It's like if someone speak in publicly, and then like incite encourage hatred towards identified group. Then those kind of speech are prevented. But he didn't say about anything about misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
So So that's why I say, I ask, like the earth is flat. Is that a misinformation?
Misinformation would be like a whole belief system, because you can have a false statement, but I think misinformation would be intention to deceive. You
But
know?
how do you know the intention? Intention is right in the head. So if someone said, the earth is flat, how do you know his intention is to deceive you, or he's just, not understanding something,
The reason I say this is because like scientists will disagree, and you
Right.
wouldn't say that like I don't think it would be appropriate use of the word to say that like your rival scientist is engaged in misinformation. But someone like Alex Jones, maybe it's not purely intentional, but that's a factor. Alex Jones, when he was talking about the Sandy Hook killings and made a whole bunch of money off of it, that is of a different thing than lack of understanding. And then some people that are like they're like rabble rousers. They're like propagating information that is known to be false, And I think there's different levels of that whole thing. And then there's people that actually believe in it,
One rich man, wealthy man, he thought it is a flat earth, and he took a rocket. Finally, he died to prove that the earth was flat. He was intelligent, clever, whatever, but finally he died.
So he took a rocket into space
No, he's
on his back. Okay.
had
Yeah.
to see it was flat. It's a very famous case.
Okay. I'm not sure. Yeah.
But one case, someone could perhaps inform some mental disease or whatever. But one case,
A lot of people also, on that one, a lot of people, I think during the COVID, people talk about so much things about COVID. Some people just don't believe it, right? The vaccination, whatever. And then also another famous topic is called, what do you call it? The deep state.
Yeah.
Deep state.
Sure.
So if someone's talk about, are those, what do you
Yeah.
call
So
that? What do you
they're
call those?
conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
So like, we'll just put that down here.
because,
All like types of no, it's not even types of information.
because
Whatever.
philosophy could be controversial. It's not talk about love or whatnot. It could be some controversial ideas. And internet, sometimes what controversial ideas, they don't allow it. They cut for your YouTube channel
Mhm.
because the artificial intelligence detect some kind of bad information.
Yeah, like if you're explaining how to make bombs, for example, or
No, not bombs. It's more.
yeah, or other
Real
things like
cases.
things that would that would give information that could be used to hurt others, and if it was in the wrong hands,
Mhm.
then there's a reason to limit that. It's like it's not even hate speech; it's like speech that would be used for like
Mhm.
violence, But then at the same time, if you're like defending yourself from an invading nation and you're explaining how to make bombs, it's a different. It's not
Extreme.
terrorism in
But-
that sense. It's like
Even Donald
You know.
Trump was also blocked. Some, I don't know exactly where. I think it was X or because he thought something about coronavirus or some crazy idea. One president, and he was totally expelled of this platform.
yeah, I saw in that context, misinformation I would say is almost being used when you're in a position of power
Position of
and
power.
people will believe you and you're not intellectually honest to inform yourself about the issue and you're just randomly saying stuff, right? That is very often false
Mhm.
and can put people at risk. So that I think that's the description of that case
Mhm.
and why, if information was the reason why that was the thing, that's why it would be in misinformation. That makes sense to me, I think, right?
But you said, the line is, you said that people may use them, but the defense will be say, I just say this, I never know people will use that, so it's not like, for example, a scientist can say some opinions about, maybe, for example, about gender,
Sure.
like the IQ of a gender or whatever. Okay. So he probably just purely doing the scientific things. Right, scientific, he has this paper, but some other people may say, hey, they use this, to discriminate, identified group,
Mhm.
So is it the scientist's fault, or is it those people who use them in their way, is that their fault? So,
Yeah.
so where's the line? You know, there's the line between academic freedom and you know, this hate speech or whatever, you know. So
Well,
where's
the academic
where's the
freedom
line?
is like the pursuit of knowledge, but we still have ethics in place,
Mhm.
even so, even for journalism as well, right? Making sure like your clients don't get harmed or whatever, like, you know what I mean?
So where's the line? Where's
Well,
the line?
Yeah, so for like, if like, it depends on the science. Every body of science will have like a code of ethics. And so like in psychology, there's a code of ethics, same with journalism, that you're supposed to follow and to be part. And what we do is we create professional bodies. And what that just means is there's like a group of people that will regulate the practitioners of that profession. And that's what it means to be a professional. Like a lawyer, you can be disbarred, or like a doctor, you can lose your license.
Oh,
Right.
okay, you have a professional body. So then they raise the question about because this, you know, what about Jordan Peterson? You know, he
So,
was
yeah.
you know, there's a professional body for
Mhm.
psychologists, right? Or you know, psychotherapists, you know. So they basically, so what about him?
Well, is an example of somebody. I think some of the things that Peterson has said, he didn't say in like the nicest way. But he is speaking from science though.
Right.
Like if he's speaking from a position of science,
But
then
people may use that, may use his speech for, you know,
malicious intentions or something.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
is it his fault or you know,
but you could almost say like the people that made the English language can be used for, you know, the thing that's being created is not intended to harm, like a nuclear bomb. Nuclear energy is one thing, and nuclear technology is one thing, but like a nuclear bomb, you know, what is that really made for? Or like a torture device. Like, is that necessary to manufacture and design this specific mechanical object that his only purpose is to cause suffering to human beings, right? Or other animals. And so I think that the intention behind the technology or design, this is like the philosophy of design in some ways, you know, is one thing. And then the use of the object is another thing. And we have to evaluate both of those things independently. Yeah, like I haven't observed, I've observed Jordan Peterson be upset and he's been hurt. He said, I think that it's hard I don't know what to say to him as a psychologist. I'm like, I would think he had a bit more, like he has patience, but you know, like I almost expect more because he's a psychologist, but he's human. And so he's his own person. Right. And the social media training thing, like, I guess they're applying the same standards to him that they did to Trump, that you're in a position of power. There's the regulating body stuff. That's one thing. But I don't know if he's necessarily like violating his professional practice. He's not like, for example, diagnosing people who have not signed a consent form, you know, or like stealing clients' money or something, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's actually doing that. Or like having a person in a vulnerable state and then manipulating them and then like, you know, whatever.
what about a deep state?
That's like a conspiracy theory again.
Yeah.
You know,
What
like
about that?
every organization or group is going to have its own internal kind of like narrative. And then there's going to be what they say to all group members that are external to their group. So a government, right, will have a certain hierarchy, and it will have the specific people that hold those positions will have affiliations with each other, and they'll have things that they talk about. You know what I mean? So a deep state makes like, it's almost like you're thinking of like a highly coordinated effort between many, many people that's completely secret, you know, and we actually just keep on adding on properties that isolates this entity that we have not proven that it really exists yet, right?
I understand, but my question is that do this kind of speech about conspiracy theory, are they part of the free speech? Are they allowed by free speech, or it should be prohibited?
I don't think it should be prohibited. It should be, it's just, I think when it comes to free speech, we have, because we're having a problem right now, right, with social media and in democracy, that if people just base their vote on how they feel and they don't really think about what's going on, it could compromise an entire political state because a tyrant could be voted in then. Like that's what happened with Hitler, right? And then look where that led us, And yeah. And so that's why being philosophical is so important, because it gives you the tools to evaluate or critical thinking, to evaluate and comprehend the meaning
Right.
and the merit of what's being said, thought, believed, the evidence that's presented to you, right? Even behavior. Like doing an ethical evaluation, for example. That's different than critical thinking, but it's just being evaluated. And so, yeah. And so those things are important as well. And being philosophical fundamentally is kind of the way that we determine what does make sense and what doesn't make sense, and we all have to do that. It can't just be one person that does it. That's not practical. That's not the reality we live in. Everybody needs to learn to do this. Right.
Yes.
And so that's what the philosophy society is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the thing that I'm holding on to, that I believe that if we could teach everybody this, then they could think for themselves, and then they could figure out what to do with the world. I don't really know what to do with the world, but I think if we all learn to think and to communicate, we will figure it out. So let's start with that, and then we can solve all of our problems.
That's very good. That's actually in line with a lot of the political philosophers, like the Habermas. His theory about communicative rationality. Basically, encourage talking, but he talk about it's also encourage public rationality, like using rationality to discuss public affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And what many philosophers were executed?
Well, yeah, sure.
Yes.
I think there's more that have died that we don't know about than we do know about. But
No, but this is one example of what we see now here in 1,000 years could be totally it's stupid. I mean, it should be free. Don't worry. It's in the Middle Age. We talk about God.
Yeah.
And we talk now, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see in one time, like it's horrible, it's terrible. And now it's nothing. So the evolution of the human beings, how can also this think about the same idea?
Yeah, like how morality changes throughout like cultural development and social development. You know what I mean? Like women's right to vote is a recent phenomena in the spectrum of political behavior. You know what I mean?
Even in one
sorry, go ahead.
in one country, you have the same idea in China, Iran, or Canada. You could be killed, you could be in a prison, or you are totally normal.
Yeah, it just makes sense. I think that there's an objective, and that's kind of you're kind of giving an example. If you had a choice, right? There's almost an objective justification for why being in a democratic, liberal society, liberal as in like we promote free speech and human rights. Let's just define liberal that way, right? Yeah, I think that just on its own, unless you have like a lot of money and you're super powerful, because it would be like the antithesis to that idea. Okay, you're super powerful, you got a lot of money, and you're in control. But how many people are in that position? Like almost none. It's like Putin. Like you can go through like a little list here. Whenever I talk about Russia stuff, and then I get like people from Russia that look at my website, I'm like, I wonder if there's a correlation. We talk about that. Yeah. Achilles is shit talking Russian Kremlin. I am a little bit. I'm sorry. Yeah, and so for their own benefit.
A lot of Russia will support you.
I hope so.
Because those support what do you talk about? The guy who got murdered.
Navalny.
Basically, those people. I'm sure there's a lot of Russians like them.
Yeah.
Because you just talk about. You said I don't know how the society will be. What's a good society should be. But if people all have this critical thinking, then people can talk and figure it out together, right?
Yeah, like if you think about politics like this way, like I'm not a political scientist, right? So you can have there's like a bunch of people, right? That's kind of the situation. You can be one of them, right? Like that's you, just like magnifying it. And so on one sense, if I think this is like where power comes in. It's like the power level. This is like population. Right? If one person has more power, they're up here, that means they have control over a large segment of the population.
It's very
Right.
easy.
And for that person,
Mhm.
like control makes sense from that person's perspective. You could make, like I can see it. We can still say why it's not good, because there's reasons independent of the power factor that make absolute control not good. For example, if that person becomes unconscious,
Mhm.
if you made that property universal, then there would be no decisions. And society would just halt. Why? Because the person's sleeping or something, or if they died. So there has to be some transfer of power from this person. That's the human condition. And then like the quest for the eternal life or whatever is the powerful, whether even just that being youth or like health, right? Because that's a form of power. They don't want to lose their power, which makes sense. It's like a self-sustaining thing, whatever. We don't have to argue that. That's not the point. The point is like the state of nature, right? There's politics, and then there's this thing like the state of nature.
Indeed, you have full power, man. And you have medias, you have universities,
Mhm.
and you have politicians. It's very easy to control the ships, the populations.
You become a dictatorship.
Some bombing with information. For example, the war in Ukraine should be necessary, or is something we'll don't promote. So it depends on how medias like bombing you, and after many months you think as I want.
Well, that's a mechanism of oppression and a war strategy with propaganda. Like that's a whole
No,
thing.
it's the same.
It's a means of the control thing,
You control
right?
the mind.
So just a quick structuralist comment. When we talk about the class structure here,
Mhm.
right? As Jose is bringing up ideas, my job as the facilitator is to integrate them. And if they're not demonstrated on the diagram yet, then I write something else. I give it its own space. And maybe it'll connect up, but it at least gets a spot for now. And then we can judge how relevant anything that's really said is to the topic of the day kind of thing.
Can I comment on that one? You talk about the power
like
thing.
a beep here.
Just for that purpose of discussion, I'll play a devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because you said, I think what you describe here is a little bit. I have the feeling of a little bit utilitarian.
Sure.
You care about the consequence.
We can talk
But,
about that.
Yeah, but I'm more on the ontological whatever. So basically, it's not about the power. First of all, in a normative society, everyone should be equal. Like
Okay.
a homeless person, a person working in Wall Street, or Wall Street, they should have there's some basic fundamental goods, like the voting rights, like your right to move, to live anywhere in the country, the free speech. That shouldn't be different from a billionaire or a homeless person.
Okay.
So that's a fundamental thing. It doesn't matter, because we all think it's against the moral instinct that if you say, oh, the billionaire should have more free speech than a homeless person. No, maybe in reality it is, but it shouldn't be that way. The country, the society should protect each person, have their basic rights, right? Like
I think it's when it becomes a policy.
right. That's
Right.
what democracy means. In
Yeah.
democratic, right?
Because
Yeah.
someone might lack cognitive, like they may lack a physiological capacity, or they might just have more money, so they can like pay for like a video guide.
Right. Yeah. So everyone should have the same right. But in reality, we know the people who have more money will have more power to exercise his freedom.
Okay.
That's a different thing than the right of freedom. He just had more capability, to organize people to support him, for example, or make a more part. So ideal society, this is what John Rawls says, talk about, they should let the rich, they should somehow, the nation should maybe tax the rich guy, and then subsidize, to the people that is become a weaker group because of the market. The market may favor those rich guys. So then the capability of exercising the freedom also could be equal. Otherwise you will have billionaire, like you said, who control media, who whatever, then people like us, will have no say, right? You talk about those lobby group, those money that we all don't know. Each party, for example, they talk about in United States, there's a lot of going on, so that's the idea about power, because one of the we talk about liberalists, one of the key things that the liberals care about is how do we limit the interference of the country or the government on our freedom, because the government is very powerful. We have the government to facilitate, to make it more efficient, but we cannot let that government to interfere our fundamental freedom. For example, they say, "Oh, Achilles, you cannot do this, if you say this against us, you'll be punished." So we cannot, that's free speech, right?
Okay, here, let's go back to this point here for a second. So some people are in a position of power because they have money or resources, and then you talk about this taxing method to redistribute.
Redistribution, yeah, it's called distribution justice.
Distributed justice, yeah.
And here is with the banking and politicians. In this
Well, if you're focused
powerful
on
people.
if you're focused on the power, that's actually the wrong motivation for being in politics, because it's a skewed view of what that is supposed to do for the state of nature, right? There's politics, which if you believe that it's retaining power and control or controlling people for some agenda or belief system, that's an unhealthy political agenda, right? Really, the state of nature is that there's a whole bunch of us, and what are we going to do with each other, right? That's really what's going on. And so I think that it's important to observe accurately what we're discussing. Like if we're discussing, like we're building something, we want to make sure that the material is supported by the foundation so it doesn't fall, because we're going to be in the building. Or we want to make sure that the roof doesn't leak, right? Because it's going to rain. And so we know these things because we can observe buildings fall. We can have our stuff laying around and we can have water fall on us, right? So we know that there's a bunch of people, and how we move towards managing those people, is really what politics is supposed to be. But the problem is that because all of these people have needs, the one who has resources gains more power.
Resources,
Right?
money,
Yeah.
money. It's in
Over the
middle.
people.
Banking is, what happened in Montreal. You're
What
Canadian,
happened in
more
Montreal?
Canadian than me.
Okay, well, tell me.
In all the banks in the 1980s were in Montreal. It was the financial capital
Oh yeah.
in Canada and everywhere.
Now they moved to Toronto.
Yes. Then the move of the headquarters here. What's happening? Economy, rich people, all these industries, always rising. You exponential growing in Toronto about economy. That is because of money, banking.
Yeah, well, that's like maybe there's a reason why it's better to have it here. I'm just saying that, like, when it comes to politics, we really want to understand what the state of nature is, and it's not just maintaining power and control, right? As a mechanism to organize society or the people. We have to look at the needs of the people. There's a bunch of factors that all have to be integrated together to know what best to do, right? Actually, And so, like, for example, for Canada, because Canada is a border with Russia in the Arctic, that means that the Arctic is an important thing to protect if we want to claim sovereignty over it. Otherwise, it's just going to be taken away from us. That's just a geographical necessity. If you believe this is part of your country, right, and you don't want the natural resources to get exploited or the people that live there, then you're going to have to protect them. And so when you talk about politics, it would be what the people are going to do about the place that they live, how they relate to each other, right? How we're going to take our shared resources and do something with it, like to clean the streets or whatever, hire police officers. And then there's some economy, i.e. capitalism. There's some regulatory mechanism for trade. And we can have certain like rules on that. You can have a free market or you can have like a closed market, right? And so we choose to have a free capitalist market kind of thing. That's where we're at. And the problems are just that like when capitalism becomes the main focus and not a means to an end, then you get into these wealth distribution problems, right? It's a value in the person that's in some ways abusing the system, the economic system, right? Just for their own personal gain and the accumulation of wealth and or power, you know?
What do you mean by capitalism here? Because this word is used in different ways. When you talk about Canada adopting a capital, what do you mean by that? Is it means a free market or what?
I mean capitalism as in like the production of goods and services to accumulate monetary gain. And then monetary gain is almost like a limitless goal where you just want to keep on getting more money. And then the use of the money is like, you know, becomes extravagant. It's not like, and it's, I think that like, you know, there is something to be said about private, and then it goes back to private property. Well, who determines, you know, who does what with what? And like, is there what is the nature of the concept of ownership? Right? And that goes back to like John Locke discussing how if you put effort into the land, whatever you get out of it becomes yours. That's like one of the beginning ideas of private property. And so
the Scandinavian countries, they are regarded as a socialist countries. How is Canada different from them?
I don't know enough about it to say.
Okay.
I'm not sure. We'd have to look into it. It might just be, I think they're still capitalist fundamentally, but there might, this is where if I had more training in political science, I could show you the difference, but at this point I can't.
Okay.
Well, that's a good question. I like that question. Very good. The UN or a Scandinavian country, they have this method of evaluating democratic societies based on certain properties. And like, if you don't have like the right to assembly, you can't hang out. You don't have the right to free speech or to criticize those in power. It reduces your rating. Yeah.
Just very quick on this one, I actually look at the first few paragraph of the act, the Constitution of Canada. The first thing they talk about is freedom of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is freedom of speech, and then freedom of assembly, and then freedom of like, you know, I don't know, you know, some others.
Property.
Yeah, the first thing is freedom of consciousness, like a religion, you know, like you can believe any religion or whatever, you know, you shouldn't be punished, you know, by not believing something. You know?
Mhm.
That's on this, like the first paragraph, you know. So I wonder, you know, it must
What was
be,
this again, sorry?
Hmm?
What was this? Would you read the first paragraph?
it's called the Act, like the Constitution of Canada.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, 1982.
Sure.
They you know, which what they used, you know. So I bet, you know, probably this same thing. This thing also in a lot of the democratic countries. You know. I think that's a reason why they put them in the first paragraph. That's what I'm saying. You know.
Okay. So what we can do, let's switch gears a bit. So I've written some stuff that I think would be fun, ideas for like writing in the newsletter.
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna read very short, like one sentence or less. And we can talk about it. Okay.
Mhm.
I think you guys just as like a if you're gonna put your hand in the bucket and pick out like a philosophical like starter point and just spark conversation. You're like, oh my god, I don't know what to say. Okay, let me get a second.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, I'm gonna like yeah, okay. So there's this one, I don't know if it was, I'm not sure where this one comes from, but some of these I wrote down because they're principles that I live by. So one of the principles is wars are won and the generals tent. That might be a Sun Tzu Art of War quote, I'm not too sure, but I don't want to misquote it. Wars are won in the general's tent. What does that mean? I have an idea.
I don't know if Sun Tzu or not. I don't know.
Shall I look it up? Let's look it up.
In general, I think there's more people
It's not about how
the
important the
right.
leadership is.
Usually, this one experience, you say for the weight of one cow. If you take one or two people, you have one estimation. Okay. If you have 1,000 people, it's still right. It's very accurate.
It looks like a Stephen Covey quote. There might be, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh, Stephen Covey.
Oh my God. Did I get that from Stephen Covey? Okay. Wow. That's funny. What I get from, sorry, what'd you say?
No, it's just many people have usually right.
Mm.
Usually this is a right opinion, and someone people you feel you can learn, and you could be wrong if you are alone and don't count on the general opinion.
Okay, that's interesting. I think what he's trying to say, or what this quote is about, is like when you think about a large scale battle like Napoleon or like, you know, like Ukraine or whatever, the making a plan that makes sense and will lead to success is done in preparation before, then when you're in the heat of battle. Because if you go into the heat of battle and you misunderstood the situation, then no amount of fighting is going to win that for you, right? But if you have an accurate understanding, if you've kind of like surveyed the problem correctly, and then you say, if this is the case, then this is the best solution. That is planning done in quote unquote the general's tent.
So,
Right.
so basically, the planning thing, because the general, it's basically symbolize the planning, right?
Yeah, they're the one making the decisions. So when
Then I have a question, like for something big, like, for example, the independence of the United States. Does George Washington they plan so well? They probably don't know, how the country should look like. I don't think they have a plan. So on that one, I'm just for the debate purpose. So how do you explain this thing? Because they just did it, and then eventually, they get it, they get it right. I don't know how they get it right.
Yeah, well, there's a trial and error period. Like it's not like when you're planning stuff, you're going to know every outcome. You can't like foresee the future. Then you would just move out of the way and not get shot or something like that, But it's more about like if you're misperceiving something and you go in with the wrong like attitude or like you're necessarily going to fail or just not be successful.
Yeah, also you have information about the French Revolution before.
Yeah.
The freedom. The taxes were very high from England to the colonies. And this economical, it's historical. It's the freedom to be free and have a new Rousseau, this philosopher, to say, okay, we don't have any more the dependence from England and the UK, and we can be free. It's move also people.
But
this revolution
I agree with that. Is the French Revolution is after the US, right?
before.
It was in the 1700s.
It's 1789
Mhm.
because the French actually inspired by what happened in the United States, and then they want to follow. I think it's a behind a bit
So
yeah.
began
According to top
1789 for the French
Yeah,
Revolution.
and look at the US. I if I understand correctly. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's the American was 75 to 83. So the American was before.
Yeah. So the French actually thought,
No, but I mean the
Inspired.
ideas, the revolution. Also,
Oh yeah, for sure. The ideas, but for
Yes.
sure. Yeah,
Like the social
ideas.
contract theory.
So the social and
contract,
Locke and
ideas.
John Locke.
and economical. It was philosophical, economical, and finally explodes all together. Nothing is by chance. Behind there is many reasons. Spain helped, France helped also to this revolution with money.
So the next question is, both are inspired. I mean, both revolutions, inspired by Locke, by Rousseau. But why the French actually turns into a disaster? But U.S. actually,
Hungry.
eventually built into a pretty, prosperous. But French, actually, they failed. The king got cut. Robespierre got killed. And become actually this. Actually, also have an impact on the Russian the later Bolshevik, revolution,
I'm not sure.
similar like that,
Mhm.
So it's actually, the dictatorship. You will check on maybe. Anyway, the idea is on the French Revolution, they actually create something called I kill you in the name of people. Very similar, like later in Soviet Union and also in China. They all kill you in the name of people. Like a terror,
Mhm.
but they use the name of people. They are not using the name of emperor.
Like
Or
when
God.
Soviet, you
Yeah.
have another
So
one.
oligarch, yeah.
Soviet, you have Karl Marx.
Karl Marx. Yeah.
Inspired, yes, Karl Marx inspired this revolution. Learning, Stalin, Trotsky, whoever, but always ideas.
Yeah. And even Hitler, using the name of people. He doesn't he's also using I'm for the benefit of German for the right. So I mean, what I'm saying though, this is a democratic like a Canada country. Whenever
And
They
again,
were-
it wasn't
they were
by
not-
chance. Not on what Hitler was before the first World War. The restrictions, the economy, the people really needed something to eat, and finally, also for sure, economical reasons. Germany needs more territories in Africa. And the steel war. Hitler was someone that the human face, the spark.
Well, yeah, he was taking Germany when it was like, not doing well, and then demonizing a certain group of people in World War I and II.
Well, yes, there was many high
Germany.
restrictions and penalties.
Yeah.
They have to pay all the consequences of the First World War, and this is very, very high, very strict, and create this resistance finally explodes.
Well, it's when like the people are suffering, and then you present yourself as like the savior of that suffering, or you demonize like a threat, and there's fear, and then you can get more power that way. Yeah, it's just, and the point about the general's tent was just that, like, what are they doing in the tent? They're looking usually at a model of the battle, and then they're planning on how to best go through the battle to win, right? So if the model's not representative of reality, you're missing information, or you just don't know what's going on, then you can't win in real life, right? Okay, here, I'll throw another idea out there. Okay. So this is like a question, or this is like a dialogue. What is the grammar of being or existing? Grammar is the set of rules for how a natural language is structured, as demonstrated by speakers or writers. It's like a Wikipedia definition. So in some ways, there's the person who you are, and then within you is this function of consciousness. It sees through you, right? And then you're within your environment. So you're conscious through your person, and someone who's in a vegetative state, they're only a being, but not really a person. If you're unconscious in that moment, you're just kind of like a human, but you're not really being you. You're not doing anything, right? Only awareness and not personhood. There's no wholeness or units of self. There's types of being. They are a type of being, but it's not the optimal state of being, because you're not engaged with people, right? The person we could talk about as a unity of selves, or the wholeness of the units of self. What are all the little parts of you that make you as that distinct person? There's different like selves almost we can talk about in different moments. And then the being, the person within existence is the being. Because if you're dead, your body's there, but you're not being. The body exists, but the person doesn't. So if you take a fictional character like Mario Brothers, is Mario being? No, he is a character. Being must exist and have personhood or awareness.
What was the point? Is it emphasized awareness?
Awareness within the person. Your consciousness, like turning on the light, has like a color to it. You have your own perception and interpretation of what's going on.
Again, I can also transmit a religion's
Sure.
mindset.
Yeah.
If you die, something else should be another world.
Okay.
So this is just for we can learn. We have experience, but it's a transition to anywhere.
Mhm.
In this case, if you think if you die, the body died is the end of your existence as a being.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it depends on how is your religion, how do you see what is after this world?
The person, if they're religious, may interpret their existence differently
Totally.
than someone who's just looking at it from this very basic set of properties, right?
Can I ask, can I still go back to the general thing,
Sure,
more-
the general's
one,
10,
general
yeah.
10? I had a, thought, I had a question actually. Does this also mean because the general is so important? Like when you, want to build a big, project, like a philosophy, society, maybe you are seeking some partner. But is it very important that before you guys go into this project, like you work with any partner, or even like a marriage, like a marriage is supposed to also like a project, a lifelong project, whatever. Do you have to have like since the planning is so important, do you have to agree with the partner or make sure that you guys are agree on something very basic? Because otherwise, according to planning things, if you don't figure it out at the very beginning, means the planning has some holes. Eventually when you build something big, it will probably collapse, because the problem will not disappear when it's growing. Does that also mean that?
Well, I think that's like when you need to like have some kind of like a feedback loop. You need to like check to make sure things are okay as it's growing and developing, and then anything you missed, you just fill in those gaps to make sure that you don't have any issues. That's like an inspector coming through a building and looking at the building's safety or its integrity, right?
Right, but what if the inspector, like say, inspector find out the problem, but for example, like you and your partner, you probably didn't agree on how to solve your difference, like the issue here, but different people have different solutions, a different opinion on how to solve that issues.
In the analogy of the general's tent, there's one general
Okay.
in that thought experiment.
Okay.
In this example, there are two generals.
Right.
Right.
Right,
And
two
so
generals, yeah.
if they disagree or they value something different, then they're fighting different wars. Or they're looking at the same situation differently, but because like let's say one's a naval officer and one's like dealing with airborne stuff, they're looking at different planes differently, but they're not integrating that information into a whole, right? And so it's lacking in communication in some ways, that there's something going on between them. Almost like if the one general was confused and didn't know what to do about something and had competing ideas, right, within themselves. And so like the skill of philosophizing, we would think, or being wise, would be able to integrate all factors in a holistic way that doesn't allow for serious error, because the purpose is to succeed, right? You make decisions because you want the outcome.
And also, I was thinking about quantum theory,
Okay.
because general is a unit. Unit is smaller unit. You have atoms. If you take all the atoms in this universe, you can take one glass or input all together. Is very, very, very tiny.
Yeah. There's a lot of empty space.
So this is something that is how atoms can we can create it by atoms, and this is units of material
Yeah, sure.
to finally to make one body.
So what's your question?
But no,
Or what's your comment?
In this case,
Mhm.
according to quantum theory,
Mhm.
we all of us, we are units to create materials in general.
Okay. Yeah, well, you're the general in your own life. That's really what it's kind of about, And like sometimes things will happen and you might get like a reactive response, like, I'm going to do this. And that if you have not deliberated that and really been like, is this the right thing to do? You may be putting yourself on a trajectory or a path that's doomed to fail, or just cause you a lot of problems.
But at the same time, it's a chaos, all together chaos. But in somehow this one order, there is for any reasons all is one structure.
Mhm.
So who is creating this structure? This is something.
Well, it's like saying there's reality. There is a reality. There is one
It's
thing
reality.
that we all like are within and directed towards, you know, and those that are directed away, we would say have like psychosis. You know, you're not in this reality or you're in your own world. That's kind of how we explain that. And then people will like bring in the whole discussion of subjectivity and say that, you know, that's just the slippery slope. Okay.
Okay.
How about we go through the 7 habits a bit just to change things
Can
up
I ask
again?
one last question?
Yes.
I just want to go back to today's.
Mhm.
So the philosophy society. I just kind of, you know, the whole thing.
I guess I can finish this. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I just feel like I sense, you know, probably one of your goals. That I sense that the taste of personal growth here,
Yeah, well, I think so. I'd like that for everybody.
right? Yeah. So if that's the case, you know, what do you think? What's the goal for you? What do you think that you know, with the personal growth, you know, where do we grow to? You know, what should a person should be like? You know, if you know all this personal growth leads to where?
I think it's intrinsic. You may have specific goals, right? And we can talk about those goals, but we really want to focus on that intrinsic, internally motivated, without reward or consequence way of being that expands your opportunities and creates more meaning for you and healthier relationships, right?
Do you live at the present moment?
It's you're in the present moment, but it's like a lifestyle. When we talk about personal growth, I don't look at it as a goal. I look at it more of just like balance within your present life. As you're like, there's the balance part. So
Balance. Is the balance your goal?
the balance is like right here. Like you're slowly moving up in this way, you know, but you're always staying like balanced. It can like teeter totter, you know, it can like move like this, you know. And so you want to stay balanced as you're growing. So things are going to come in, and you may need, like today, in my community housing stuff, I had there's this thing with a person in the community left today. It's a good thing, you know, it's better, but I had to take time to balance myself out. Even though I may have planned to, for example, go to class this morning and then read like 100 pages. Okay. I'm going to do that, right? Something occurred and I felt in my body a lot of stress. And so I took the time to meditate and take care of myself. And then however long that took, I made sure that I balanced myself before I continued on the trajectory, right?
Do you
And
think?
so,
Do you think what happened in this world are virtual, not realistic, and another normal realistic? Because you have internet, you all now in your life, relationships, learning, people, money. It's not real. I mean, on another side, you have the real world as before.
well, I don't know. Like, I think that like there's some personality theorists that talk about like your real self, your actual self, and your ideal self. And
But it's not real when you live in a virtual life.
yeah, the virtual thing is different. That's like you're not the virtual thing. That's what people perceive of you. And even then, it's like only a portion of it. You know? There's only one person that's seen like all my videos, and it's the guy, and he doesn't even pay attention on that. It's the guy that edits them. He's watched all of them because it's the same guy that edited all of them, right?
Uh-huh.
And he is doing great. Honestly, Dennis, you are doing great, buddy. Like his fucking growth, his personal growth has like dramatically gone up in the year that he's been doing these videos. So I'd like to think that maybe there's a possibility that you've learned a couple of things, you know? All right, so that's what I'm trying to say. So the Philosophy Society is supposed to do this as a group because there's justification that doing it as a group is better. and it's more resilience towards dying as an idea or a practice, and it's supposed to be done as a group actually. And then through the wisdom thing, there's different strategies on class structure. There's films that we can go through and discuss, and there's things to be learned about there within the film. And there's specific kinds of books that we can go through. But the fundamental thing is like the unstructured discussion part. And then we can always just go back to going through material. And it's kind of relative to the people that are here. So like as time went on, people have taken something from this, maybe they've healed, and then they went on to the next thing. You know, it's a healing thing for them.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, when you talk about balance.
Yeah.
You also said there's if I understand correctly, there's no goal, no specific goal. But it's kind of like, if you don't have if you don't have a goal, why, what's the purpose of maintaining a balance? You maintain a balance to do something, right?
Yeah.
Like using your example, you said somebody left the community housing, you
Yeah.
feel some emotions, whatever, and then you want to meditate before you go to next.
Yes.
But what's the next? That give me the sense that it's not just for the sake of just maintain a balance for the sake of maintaining a balance. You maintain a balance to make sure you have a good shape to do something. And then my question is, what is that something?
Part of it is just existing. Like you could I could on the way here, if I was in a bad mood, be an asshole to somebody and then they just stab me and I was gonna die. And if I'm not good in myself, then I don't have the same control or mental faculties to observe my environment and integrate within it and to some end. So I think it's important to always be on the ball. I think the ball is earth, you're balanced on earth, And I think that's important because you don't want to further be destructive in other relationships or other things because you feel some kind of dissonance or destructiveness on the inside, whatever that might be, your stress, And so it's better to, if you can, resolve that first. And then while you're in the state of stress, you may think this is the best thing to do, right? Like read something. And then if you deal with your stress first, you may be like, actually, you know what? No, this is the better thing to do. It's wiser, this decision. It's like almost the psychology of making decisions in some ways, right? Trying to if you are out of balance, the first thing to do is balance yourself. And then from that position of being sound-minded, determine what to do. And sometimes in your life, you'll have situations that put you out of, it's stressful with certain people or something like that, and you see them frequently, right? And it may throw you out of balance. And so you would observe this, and then you would say, okay, I need to manage my life, meaning develop boundaries or move myself into a certain position where that person doesn't have access to making upset or be disrespectful or whatever it is, right? That's the healthy way.
Yeah, I understand, but my question is, you talk about, I agree, the balance is good, because it seems like that could prevent you from, something bad, in a bad mood, you ruin the relation, whatever. But is there anything more than just avoiding the negative stuff? Is there anything that is that's more more initiative? You talk about, once you have a sound mind, then you can decide, what you do next. I'm more interested in what's this next because the question is you don't do that. You don't just maintain a sound mind for just sake of maintaining sound mind, because people living this world, we talk about existence, but I just feel like is it just existence? Because existence is just existence like an animal. Like a cat is also exist. I'm just saying, is there anything that is more more than just avoiding the bad stuff?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of marriage? Well, why you wrote this newsletter? Why you make this YouTube video? You must have something that makes you interested in doing this thing, right?
Yeah. So generally, the balance part will make you more resilient or it'll protect you from harm, right? Or to not be destructive, not to create more suffering. And on the positive side, your mind is more open to the external environment. I'm not inhibiting negative emotions, right? Or dealing with like negative feelings that are coming to mind, intrusive thoughts. My brain can be focused on my environment, and I can take advantage of the opportunities that exist in the present moment when I'm not dealing with the suffering on the inside, right? So if I'm walking through the forest and I get cut and I'm bleeding, how far can I run when I'm bleeding?
Mhm.
Doesn't make sense to do that. The thing to do is to stop, take out your first aid kit, stop the bleeding, and then continue. And then until that wound is healed, regulate your movements so you don't start the bleeding again or increase it or further damage yourself. It's part of the state of nature of just being human, right? And the psychology or the wisdom, the philosophy behind the mental, that mind part is you can direct your attention to your existing state, improve it, bandage it up, right? Or heal it so that, and there's like a process. It's like, because if we tense up, there's now a physiological tension that our body has. So you have to relax. I don't know if you felt that where you like, part of your body just like releases and it relaxes, you know? And there's different activities you can do when you're relaxing. You can get out of the bath, or maybe you go, I like to sit out in the back of my house where there's like grass, and trees, right?
But why taking so much effort? Why I just if I just want to exist, then why I just take drugs? Because the drug can make me happy, and then I will someday just kill myself, whatever. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
because then I don't have to worry all this. Is there anything that worth taking so much effort to
I don't think it actually takes effort. I think it's just a habit, like other things. People do drugs. People smoke cigarettes to calm down, right? They drink alcohol. It's just that there's consequences to those things, and you can try it out, or you can look at people that do those things and see what happens to them. And so the wise thing would be to learn a self-sustaining habit that allows you to reduce your stress, think clearly, and move forward, and then not repeat the same problems that made you suffer in the first place. And that could be your own thinking. It might not even be the other person or the world, right? So there has to be some evaluative mechanism to screen out what is really going on here with me, and why is it the case that I feel this way, right? So anyways, the Philosophy Society is trying to teach us that, right? That's one thing that we want to learn, and all these other things. So there are specific things I've talked about, and like things like this, which kind of connect to the general theory of just the human condition and what's going on. And that just comes from reading psychology and philosophy, kind of. This is where I got that from. Yeah. Okay.